A few weeks ago, I had a revelation. We live in a golden age of do-it-yourself. I fixed our out-of-warranty dishwasher. Could we have lived without a dishwasher like primitive savages? No. Also, studies show it is better for the environment to have a dishwasher, uses less water, and more importantly, better for my marriage. YouTube taught me how to dismantle the machine, replace the part that was defective, put it back together. When I finished this project and the machine actually worked, I was euphoric. I walked around the house looking for something else to fix. Anything wrong with the cars, I can fix it. I learned all kinds of things. I actually felt so confident I could go to YouTube and learn anything I wanted. It's the golden age, a utopia of do-it-yourself. Heart surgery, probably can learn it. Building a lunar lander, probably. Making sourdough, Shelly wants me to learn how to make sourdough. Curing male pattern baldness, Patty McCoy. I was talking to a friend about this material, and he sent me this, what he said was going to be a very useful essay for me to read. It is Ralph Waldo Emerson's most popular essay, Self-Reliance. The theme is trust yourself. I just saved you the time of having to read Ralph Waldo Emerson's most popular essay. Self-made is one of the highest compliments you can pay anyone these days. And here is where Paul, in his first word to the Ephesians, disrupts this utopia of self-reliance, this utopia of do-it-yourself, by naming the things that we cannot do for ourselves and God has done for us. He has done the thing that we could never do for ourselves, God has. We cannot do it with harder work. We cannot do it with more training. We cannot do it by developing more competencies, better negotiating skills, by disciplining ourselves, hiring a coach or a trainer, getting up earlier in the morning or staying up later at night, working harder or smarter. We could not do these things. Paul says, this is not a transaction or an exchange. God chose us in Christ before the foundation of the world. God destined us for adoption, in love, by the way, to be his children through Jesus Christ. And in him, we have redemption. Every single verb, get this, every single verb in Ephesians that you just heard from Ephesians 1, 3 to 14 names God's action, describing what God has done for us. We don't play a part in that. We are the subject of these verbs. The truth is that when Japhet gave me this text to talk about, to Japhet, the preacher in me didn't know what to do with it at first. Because whether we admit it or not, whether we're aware or not, we preachers are conditioned to talk mainly about what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to think, how we're supposed to feel, how we're supposed to act in the world. And that's a good thing most of the time. But if we're not careful, this whole thing can become a sort of a form of pure moralism, how to live a better life. Another self-help, session on techniques and tips for personal improvement, more training, more competencies, how to get up earlier in the morning, how to work harder, how to work smarter. And you don't need God for that. Church or any other kind of gathering like this one, when we behave this way, talk this way, becomes basically well-meaning people who would like to do some fine-tuning on their basically good lives. These things become a time to gather ourselves with our little moral notepads to receive our ethical assignments for the week so we can live ethically from Monday to Friday, and you don't need God for that. I have a friend who told me this and has said this to me in several different ways. This is the most succinctly he has put it in the last couple of weeks. My problem with church, he says, is that we spend half or more of our time singing songs about what God has done. I want to get to the part where we talk about what I'm responsible for. Like, well, what is my takeaway? He treats church like a Monday morning corporate teams meeting. Just teach me how to fix the dishwasher. That's my job. And how tragic that the business of too many churches is just that, business. Programs and potlucks and band practices and finance committee meetings and pathfinders, et cetera, et cetera. We keep people busy. This is what one author says, Will Willimon. We keep people busy breathlessly going from self-improvement programs to seminars rather than looking to the kingdom, rather than being a sign pointing to the kingdom. We become a roadblock constructed by a church that has forgotten it is all about God. And in this wonderful side note in his commentary, side note on how it affects our worship, which I think is so good. He says, alas, much of our worship is distinguished more for its dogged persistence than its beauty. We are called, he says, we are called to a much bolder, morally riskier task than simply obeying the rules. It is risky. Through our praise and communion, we are called to sign, signal, and witness the advent of God's kingdom, a countercultural place where the prisoners, the poor, and the wretched of the earth are royalty, and all things are made new. Our worship is not simply a sign of the coming kingdom, it is a manifestation of its presence. Here, the kingdom becomes tangible and visible. That's what Paul is doing in chapter 1 of Ephesians. His message is massive, it's cosmic. He begins not with us and our anxious, tendency to navel gaze and spend time taking moral temperature. What's going on and how can we become better? He begins with God, with the creator of heaven and earth, who in an amazing act of divine generosity chose us. Number one, he chose us. The fact of God's choosing has always been difficult for us to understand. Theologians, philosophers, poets, musicians, everyone's tried to explain it. But it makes no sense. There's no logic to God's choice. Paul himself in this text concludes, it is a mystery, a wonderful and beautiful mystery that transforms humanity. God adopted us in love, and I'm repeating love because apparently in Roman practice, which is the Romans practice adoption. You probably already know this. You've heard this probably preached before. The Jews and the Greeks did not practice adoption, but the Romans did. And it wasn't always in love. There was always some agenda, how to protect my lineage, how to protect my property, but Paul makes sure that he's speaking to the Ephesian city, the Roman city. He tells them it was in love that he adopted you. And you became a legal heir, a real child of the person that adopted you in the Roman law. And so Paul is communicating to them, you are now part of this inheritance. God adopted you. And God redeemed you, chose you. He adopted you. And he redeemed you. And this is, again, a verb, and we're the subject of this verb, God redeemed. And other ways to render this word are liberated, delivered, rescued. We were rescued. We don't play a part. We simply accept this gift of God. And I know that Kyle this afternoon has chapter 2 of this wonderful epistle, but it bears naming here now that because chapter 2 goes on with Paul writes beautifully about how it is not our part, it is all God's part, but it bears naming here that redemption is all the work of God. We simply accept it. In one of my euphoric flourishes of do-it-yourselfness, one day I decided that I was going to demolish a wall in my house, open up, some space between the kitchen and the living room, and that was a great idea. Demolishing is definitely one of my gifts. I did that very easily. It did not require many trips to Home Depot. You know how sometimes you begin a project and you have to walk 10 times? This one did not. I didn't go to Home Depot at all. I just took a big sledgehammer and went to town. Took this wall down, and then I had this gigantic pile of debris in my backyard to contend with him, because I am also very cheap, as you already know, because I fixed my own dishwasher. I didn't know what to do with this debris. So my next plan was, because I didn't want to pay money for one of those big containers that you can just pile it all in and they haul it away. That was going to be $150. I was like, no, I'm gonna just slowly, over the course of the next 6 months. I don't know what the trash cans look like in your municipality, but in mine, they're pretty small. So every week I would go out there, every Sunday night, I would go out there and I would do the work of, breaking down some of these planks and putting them in the, and one day I'm out there, breaking these 2x4s and other pieces of wood, and my son is watching me, and I can see my son's looking at me. My father's a do-it-yourselfer. That's being imprinted in his soul. I too can be like him one day and fix dishwashers and at some Sunday nights I would use a saw to actually power through some of this task. But this day, because my son was watching, I wanted him to see how powerful his dad is. So I got a cinder block and I was cracking these boards with my leg, my powerful horse-like leg. Why do you laugh like that, Jason? And in one of those powerful, cracking motions with my leg, it was too late, but I noticed it too late. One of the boards had a large rusty nail sticking out of it that, well, you want to hear the rest? Basically the board nailed itself to my leg. Completely, just went all the way into my leg. And I turned to Micah, who's watching me, and what I don't want to imprint on his mind or his soul is my father fell on the ground and began to whimper. That would definitely come up in some counseling session in the future. So I just grunted. I went, "Go get your mom right now." And she, of 30 years of wonderful, happy marriage, came around the corner with a smirk on her face, like, "What did you self-starter, you do-it-yourselfer do now?" She looked, by the time she got there, by the way, I had already performed field surgery on myself and removed the nail from my leg, and I'm laying on the ground shaking, holding my leg, and I said, "Get an ambulance." And she said, "We're not going to do that." It's a show. I pointed at the board with the nail and some blood dripping from it. I said, "Show, that thing was in my leg." And she said, "Yeah." And then she walked away. Went around the corner, chose to come back around the corner from the wall and said, "I hope you don't get tetanus." Walked away. I'm making you sound terrible, Shelley. But actually, she's the one that gave me the idea. I better go get a tetanus shot. Next day, I went and got a tetanus shot. And for the next couple of weeks, because I went online and I read about tetanus. Did you know it's commonly called lockjaw? Did you know that? And that's one of the stages towards your death. It is that your jaw locks and eventually the virus moves into your lungs and you stop breathing. So for the next couple of weeks after my shot, I would sit at dinner and Shell would say to me, "Why are you moving your jaw like that?" It's like, "Am I moving my jaw a little bit?" And she said, "You're moving it a lot. Did you get the shot?" "I got the shot." "There's nothing you can do now." Because it's not your work that matters. It's not up to you. Whatever, you're not going to help the tetanus shot. the tetanus shot was given to you. All you can do is now just receive it. Rest in the tetanus shot. Be grateful that we have this scientific technology. Why do you keep moving your jaw? I'm almost out of time. Can I finish with one more? We play this game. You and I, we play this game that Paul is trying to prevent us from playing. We say to Jesus, Jesus, I would like to have lunch with you. And Jesus says, okay, what do you want to eat? And we, because we're clever, we go, Panera bread, because you're the bread of life. So Jesus shows up for lunch, and we sit down, and we say to Jesus, Jesus, I'd like to, because we're not very wise. I'd like to have a conversation about our accomplishments, yours and mine. Want to play this game? And because Jesus is polite, he says, this is your idea, why don't you go first? And you go first, and you go, I fixed a dishwasher. And then I turn it over to Jesus. Jesus, you do one. And Jesus says, I made the heavens and the earth. And then he says, you do one. And we go, Jesus, I'm an accomplished professional. I've achieved some level of success and respect in my field. Have you looked at my LinkedIn? I exaggerated a little, but you get the gist. And then we go, Jesus, you do one. And Jesus goes, I gave you life. And you're breathing right now because I will it. This morning you awoke because I willed it. You do one. Me. I'm on the nominating committee. Hours. I lead Pathfinders. Help decorate for Christmas. Back to you, Jesus. And now Jesus decides to just play a little bit with me, and he goes, mangoes. You like mangoes? Avocados, pineapples. I made that. Do you like eating pasta, pizza, hummus? That's me. You like holding hands? Sunshine. You know that feeling you get when you watch a baby take its first steps, kissing? You like ice cream, chocolate, music that moves you in your soul, Bach, Mozart, Bono, whatever your music is. A good book, peace and quiet, crisp, cold winter mornings. That feeling after a workout, the buzz that you have. And again, that feeling you have when someone reaches for your hand and holds it. A great movie with friends to laugh with, songs, again, to stir your soul, a hug from someone you haven't seen in a long time. I chose you. I adopted you. I redeemed you. You do one. No, really, tell me about the dishwasher. Quit moving your jaw. It's his work from start to finish. Amen.